Hello everyone, hope everybody's doing great today. With recent patch to Helldivers 2 claiming the fix away damage over time works if you're not the host, I've been seeing a lot of people joining my games using things like the flamethrower and a napalm eagle strike. And as great as it is to see such variety in my games, I like to highlight another damage over time stratagem, the Orbital Gas Strike. The gas strike has always been an interesting stratagem to me with its unique way of taking out enemies by means of corrosive gas. And with the recent fix to damage over time, it sort of reignited my interest in it, and I've been using it a lot as well as learning a lot of things while using it. Which brings us to this video where I will share all that I've learned with the Orbital Gas Strike, informing you all on everything I believe makes the ins and outs of it and giving you the information needed to make the decision yourselves on whether or not you think you should bring it with you on your dives. I got a lot of neat and fun things to share, but before we get into it, a quick overview of what to expect. First, we'll start with the basics, and here we'll take a glance over the Gas Strike at face value. We'll see its most basic functions and its intended use. Next, we'll move over to 2, the behavior and damage, and here we'll take a look at the behavior of the corrosive gas cloud and the shell that it comes in on. In this section, I'll also share with you my thoughts on how exactly I think the gas strike works, from the damage it deals to the way that the gas cloud kind of forms and moves. Onto the third section, we'll be looking at gameplay and use cases, and here I'll share my thoughts on how I use the gas strikes against both the automatons and determinids. I'll be highlighting cases where the gas strikes perform well and cases where its weaknesses became well known. For the fourth section, we have here tips, tricks, and interactions, and before we wrap things up, I'd like to spend some time sharing some unique things I found out, as well as some neat tips and tricks that I thought will be good to use while using the gas strike. And finally, my overall thoughts, and here I'll just share my personal 2 cents about the stratagem and my thoughts about it for the future. As a quick disclaimer, everything that I'll be sharing with you guys today about the Orbital Gas Strike is from what I observed. If you feel like there's anything in this video that I'm missing about the gas strike, please feel free to comment it and let me know. I'd love to have the discussion, and there is no liberation without communication. And if that all sounds good to you, I'd like to welcome you on board the power of war, because noxious fumes are a force to be reckoned with. And we'll start this breakdown with what the ship description of what the Orbital Gas Strike is. Here, it says that the Orbital Gas Strike is a projectile which releases a cloud of corrosive gas, harmful to both organic and robotic life forms. I feel the description to be fair, and I also want to highlight that the cooldown of the gas strike is fairly low, with a cooldown time of only 75 seconds. On top of that, the game wants us to know that the gas strike has an explosive trait to it. The gas strike has this trait to it because when you call it in during your mission, the gas does not come in the form of a shot the way the EMS Orbital Strike or the Orbital Precision Strike does. The gas is delivered through this: a shell fired from your super destroyer with the gas as the payload. When a shell makes contact with the terrain, it's going to explode and release the gas. If you look at it here, the gas can easily be denoted by the distinct green clouds that now occupy the area where you called it in on. Any units that enter this area here will begin to take damage, and I don't feel it's right to say poison damage, so I'll continue to refer to this as just toxic damage. Compared to fire, which ticks away at your health rapidly, the toxic gas takes chunks of your health over a period of time. Units affected by the toxic gas can be seen having like these small green clouds around their model, and for Helldivers specifically, you also make a groan similar to when you get hurt in general, and then you'll also be coughing. Unlike fire, you cannot dive to get rid of the effect. Rather, it is recommended that you just try to leave the area as fast as you can. When leaving the area of toxic gas, the toxic damage will still linger, dealing damage to you over time. More often than not, contacting the toxic gas and the lingering status of it will be enough to kill you, but you are able to out-heal the damage by stibbing yourself and getting out of the range of the gas. Toxic gas cloud stays active for about 15 seconds, and despite there being still a visual of green gas beyond that time, you can still safely walk in that area and not get damaged by any toxic. What's neat about the duration is that the cooldown for the Orbital Gas Strike begins on impact, which means you pretty much have this on cooldown for only 60 seconds, so gas strike away. Looking at it here, that pretty much wraps it up for the basics. Now let's get into the behavior of the gas cloud and the damage that it deals. Let's start with the damage. It seems that to both Helldivers and enemies alike, the gas cloud ignores armor, attacking the unit's health directly and ticking away at it with flat damage. When affected by the toxic gas, the damage ticks every 0.25 seconds, and when under the effects of the toxic gas, the only thing that really happens to you is that 1, you take damage, and 2, your walking and sprinting speed are slowed. You won't be slowed severely, and you won't even see that slowed text underneath your stamina bar, but you cannot walk or run as fast as you could. You're still able to aim, crouch slide, and dive without issue. And your vision does not become blurry either. So long as you continue to stay within the gas cloud, you will be constantly taking those ticks of damage. When leaving a gas cloud, the toxic damage will linger for several more seconds, but something I noticed is that even if you were to freshly walk into the gas cloud, if the duration of the gas strike ends, so does the toxic status. Meaning you can walk into the gas cloud at the final second, get affected by the toxic gas, and only take a couple of ticks of damage, and that's it, because then the duration ends and so does the toxic gas. I'm confident to say that's how this works on Helldivers, and I'm not so certain about the enemies. I want to say it's the same, but I've seen chargers die even after the gas cloud has fully dissipated, and I haven't hit them with anything else but the gas strikes. Lastly, the damage you take from the gas cloud is constant. There is no increasing damage that scales over time depending on how long a unit is in the gas cloud or how deep within the gas cloud they are. As for the behavior of the gas cloud, there are several steps to it, and I have some visuals to help illustrate the idea of it. Again, it all begins right here with the fire shell carrying the toxic gas. Here you'll see a top-down view of the gas strike with this Helldiver here at the bottom being you, the gas strike icon being the center of the explosion, and the circle surrounding it being the range of the gas. On impact, the shell carrying the gas explodes, and the explosion radius from what I've tested seemed to go as far as 17 meters, meaning you'll be safe at a cozy distance of 18 meters. On explosion, units within the AoE will slightly recoil from the blast and also get hit with a quick bit of toxic status. You aren't technically in the gas cloud yet, but it's as if a quick layer of toxic gas was just spread over the entire radius in that blast. And since again, you aren't in the gas cloud, the toxic status will fade over time and you won't take any damage beyond that. After that initial blast, the toxic gas cloud would form at the center of the impact. And in terms of how far the radius is at this moment, I want to say it's roughly 10 meters. It may be more, but not as far as 15 meters. And over time, the gas will start to spread. And I wasn't sure if the gas would spread uniformly across all directions, but from what I experienced, this seems to be the case. Meaning it won't just spread horizontally, but vertically as well, equal across all directions. Eventually, the gas will spread to its max range, and I believe that to be roughly 17 to 18 meters. I've never seen it really gone past these numbers, and it's hard to say if it really is 18 meters because again, the shell does not always strike precisely where it was called in. I believe the radius of the blast to be spherical, and it seems to ignore terrain, meaning even if a building was between you and the point in which the gas strike started, it won't wrap around the building to reach you. It will just spread through the walls and through the floor to get to you. I tried to double check this by just using the grenade launcher to dig a hole and just to see how the gas would move, and instead of coming out of the hole like this, it would simply spread in a sphere, damaging units through the floor. And I think that's it for everything I have here on the behavior of the gas and the damage that it deals. Trying to understand this was the most difficult part for me, so if you guys have any interesting theories about the gas strike, please be sure to comment that as I love to discuss it with you all. Next, we're going to be moving on to some gameplay and use cases, and I'll start with the bugs, because here at the site it was very useful. Almost every gas strike I called in resulted in a double-digit multi-kill, at times hitting 40. Considering that the bugs generally try to just outnumber and swarm you, they will almost always be clumped together, allowing your gas strike to affect a whole lot of them. Since the gas strike directly attack enemies' health, a lot of the small bugs such as the scavengers and the hunters will drop fairly quickly, and the gas strike is great at responding to something like a bug breach, allowing the heavies to come through and be focused by you and your team while the rest of the small mobs pretty much get wiped by the gas strike. As to how quick it kills the bugs, units like the Scavenger, the Pouncer, the Hunter, the Warrior, and the Streaker will die within several seconds. Larger units such as the Brood Warrior, the Hive Guard, and the Bow Spear will need to take the near full length of the gas strike to kill it. If not, they will almost always end the gas strike duration near death, taking only a shot or two just to finish them off. When it comes to the heavies, it's tough to say for the Stalker. I believe that when they take damage to a specific point, they'll just cloak and jump away and begin to regen health, on top of already having a high base health. Because of this, I've seen it take at least 4 to 5 gas strikes to kill one. I believe if they weren't to go away and heal, it may only take 2 to 3. For Chargers, I've seen the Chargers die consistently to about 2 whole gas strikes and then halfway through the third. Lastly, for the Battle Titans, I would say it would take around 5 to 6 gas strikes to kill. I want to say 5, but that might only be if they are within the gas cloud for the entire duration every time. But since you can't stun a Battle Titan, it'll be tough to corral them into that small area for the whole duration. Overall, for the bugs, I think it's a great mob clearing tool to use. I think it's great for thinning out the swarm, and it allows you and your team to shift attention to the heavy units, as well as the objectives. As for the automatons, it's a bit of a different story. The bugs do the hard work for you and get themselves all grouped together, while the bots are pretty spread out in most firefights and will engage you at range. The only units that you can really kill quickly from the gas strike and ignore are the bot troopers and the scout striders. All types of devastators will die from a full duration of a gas strike, and although that's nice, there's still an active threat in those next 15 seconds. Much how like the toxic gas doesn't really affect you, it probably also really doesn't affect them. Their accuracy is unaffected as if they were hit by a smoke, and they're still able to lock in on you and lay heavy fire on you. For units such as the Berserkers, they can pretty much survive an entire gas strike, but most likely they will just run right through it and straight to you. Surprisingly, the Hulks don't seem to be affected by it at all. I would stun lock a Hulk into a coma just so I can continuously throw gas strikes at it. For this example you're looking here, I stopped at 8, thinking that if it was even possible at this point, it was nowhere near practical. The gas also does not seem to affect tanks or cannon turrets, but the impact of the shell carrying the gas is able to put a dent on them. 1 direct hit outright won't destroy it, but 3 direct hits on their weak spot will be enough to blow it up. And it's impractical, I know, but I feel like it's cool to know. So to sum it up, it doesn't really affect the heavies, and it takes a full duration of the gas strike to kill a devastator, and the general nature of fighting automatons is just tough because they aren't grouped together like the bugs, and they'll attack you at different ranges either by themselves or with only a couple other bots around them. So it's hard to really find good value out of a single gas strike. I was able to kind of compensate for this by saving the gas strike for times when I knew bots would be grouped up, such as at a bot drop or when engaging a patrol. Bringing stun grenades also helped to make sure that if a group of bots were caught at a gas strike, that they would stay there for the entire duration. In terms of just an ideal mission type to bring for the gas strike, I would say for either faction that the best mission is the evacuate high value assets mission. Given the way that the gas strike works, it performs best when enemies are clumped together, and what better place to use it than a map with defined choke points for enemies. With a low cooldown, I was able to consistently have gas strikes at the gates where the enemies funnel through and just leave the area in a plume of green smoke. If you were to couple that with EMS mortars near the objective, it is just a recipe for endless multi-kills. That's it for the general gameplay and use cases. Moving on to now the section of tips, tricks, and interactions. Starting with the interactions and beginning with the stratagems, the gas strike is able to destroy any health pod it affects. It will also destroy all of the sentries as well, with both types being destroyed just from a single gas strike. The heavy machine gun placement will take 2 gas strikes, and the anti-personnel mines and the incendiary variant will not get affected by the gas strike. Since the gas strike does not act like a smoke, it does not prevent your spear from locking onto a target through it, and the airburst rocket launcher will not detonate prematurely from it as well. Early on, I mentioned how the gas strike seems to attack the unit's health directly, ignoring armor. This also is the case for shields. If you equip the shield generator backpack, you will get the toxic status and will take ticks of damage over time through it. The shield backpack will not take damage from the gas and remain unaffected. The shield generator relay doesn't do any better of a job, because the gas strike can go right through it and even attack the shield generator, destroying it. I thought it would be interesting if you can sort of contain the gas strike within it if you timed it right, but since the gas moves just in a circle beyond any type of terrain, that's just not the case. The AR guard dog, the one with the liberator, does not seem to be affected by the gas strike. It's still able to lock on and shoot and perform without being damaged and sent into the repair state. The pilot exosuit also does not take any damage from the gas strike. If you are inside of the pilot exosuit while there's an active gas strike around you, you will not take any damage either, despite your Helldiver having the visual of showing that they are affected by the toxic gas. More on that, if you were to be outside in the toxic gas and get affected by it, and then enter the pilot exosuit, it will stop it immediately, pretty much preventing you from taking any more damage beyond that point. Coupling this with the fact that you can even stim yourself inside of the mech makes this pretty much a great sanctuary from a gas strike. When it comes to dealing with side objectives, the gas strike can still be considered an option because of the explosion on impact. This can be used to close up simple things like bug holes and bot fabricators, but this can also deal with other structures such as the illegal broadcast tower. You can even use it to destroy a stratagem jammer once you've disabled it, or detector tower with a really nicely lined up shot. It's also surprisingly well for dealing with determinate eggs, with almost one gas strike able to take out almost 40 eggs at one point. But I haven't been able to see much success in using it to destroy something like a spore tower or a shrieker nest. When it comes to the bug holes, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just want to chuck it into the hole and make sure that the shell lands right into it. For the bot fabricators, you also want to ideally land it right on top of it, but if you can't, the best place to throw it is in front of the bot fabricator. Even if you were to throw it directly beside or behind it, you won't always be able to destroy it. I've had a lot of success when throwing it down in front of the door, even if it's a couple meters from it. In terms of loadout options to complement the gas strike, starting with the bugs, I believe the jump pack is a must. If you are able to place yourself a high enough ground, a swarm of bugs will just gather below you, allowing you to rack up an easy 40 bomb from a single stratagem. Stun grenades are also great to bring down to lock down a group of bugs, as you call in a gas strike. A short range weapon with stagger like the blitzer is also something I like to bring, as I'm able to use it to lock down enemies in place while they're under the gas cloud. As for the bots, you ideally won't be throwing the gas strike so close to you as you would with the bugs, so even though it does go right through the shield backpack, I like to still take it with me. I also like to take stun grenades as well, just to make sure a group of devastators get a full dosage of the gas, as well as take the dominator for my primary, since not only does it do great damage but can also stagger enemies. A railgun for my support weapon makes it easy to deal with Hulk since the gas strike can't, and the EMS mortar is also a good pickup when approaching or defending an outpost or objective. In terms of what armor is best to use, I like to either run the medkit or servo assisted armor passive. I like to take medkit so I can fight close with my gas strikes, and in the event that I get caught in a radius, I'm able to outstim the damage longer as well as carry more stims. I like to take servo assisted if I want to engage with the gas strike from afar, so this is more useful against the bots than the bugs. Since the stim is able to out heal the gas, I sometimes would like to throw the gas strike right on top of me, knowing I'll be able to just heal and survive. And a quick thing I noticed about the armor is that with heavy armor, you do take less damage per tick. I don't believe this damage reduction comes off of the armor rating, but rather the innate trait within heavy armor that it gives you 10% damage reduction, as it was mentioned in patch 1.000.2. Since I mentioned stun grenades as a good option in both factions, I also want to mention the Orbital EMS Strike. It shares a similar cooldown to the Gas Strike, with both sporting a nice 75 seconds, so one can argue that they do combo well together, stunning a group of enemies and then gassing them to death. I've tried it out, and although it works well, I'd rather use my stun grenades to lock an enemy in place and save that stratagem slot for something else to help me deal with the larger enemies. Next, I've mentioned how the only effect of the toxic gas, aside from the ticking damage, is that your walking speed and sprinting speed is slower, and I tried using the new motivational shock booster to no avail because, like it says, it doesn't help with area effects, but I still wanted to give it a try. As for the way the toxic gas moves and spreads, I found the speed in which it moves to be the same time almost every time. You can see here that with the blizzard weather effect currently happening, the gas cloud seems to be right around me visually, but I'm not getting affected by it. I do not think there's a way to increase the speed or the distance that the toxic gas spreads. Next, if you happen to see the operation modifier atmospheric interference, I'd advise against using the gas strike, as an inaccurate gas strike is pretty much a useless gas strike, and I'd rather use the stratagem when I'm certain I'll know where it will land. More on where it lands. If I hadn't mentioned it before, try to aim the shell, the gas strike, on an enemy to deal additional damage from the impact. I was able to kill a Bile Titan in 3 gas strikes, with each call-in landing directly on it. Next, on planets with foggy weather, it could be tough to see the smoke, especially at the crack of dawn and you see a bright foggy glare. I found the gas clouds to be most distinguishable at missions during the night, with the green clouds being very discernibly noticeable from the rest of the environment here. Next, a quick word of caution to anyone trying to go for a high multi-kill off of a single gas strike. I personally tried to group up as much bugs as I could, and then when I landed the gas strike, my game crashed. I was very sad about that. And lastly, if your Helldiver was to be affected by a gas strike and survive, they would cough every now and then, and there doesn't seem to be any negative stats or debuffs attributed to it. I thought of it more as just an attention to detail. And actually, one more point on top of that, it does seem like the gas strike also affects beyond you, the bugs and automatons. It also affects the civilians you try to evacuate in those evacuate essential personnel missions, so I recommend not bringing it there. And overall, I think the Orbital Gas Strike is a great offensive tool. Before this deep dive, I thought of it as more as a throw and forget type of stratagem, the way you would for the Orbital Rail Cannon Strike, but since it may not be able to kill everything outright, you still need to pay attention to the enemies that it affects. They still come from it very damaged, only needing a couple more shots just to take out, and that's helpful for knowing how to prioritize my ammo so I don't reload at really bad spots. The gas strike's explosive properties also gives it a lot more utility, allowing you to use it beyond just taking out enemies and opening up ways for you to take out bot fabricators or bug holes if you're in a pinch. Personally, I do think that since the gas is literally killing you as you're in it, it should do more than just slightly slow you down when you try to walk or sprint. I feel that it should at least strain your stamina, if not give you that same motion blurring effect when a charger T-bones you, and it should work both ways where automatons have their accuracy decrease and units affected by it have their movement speed decrease. Above all though, if and whenever they add passives to helmets, the CE27 Groundbreaker should allow you to breathe within the gas. I think that would be a wonderful helmet passive. So yeah, the Orbital Gas Strike is a very interesting stratagem. I think it's great against the bugs. I think it's fair against the automatons. And I had a lot of fun testing this out and sharing all this information with you all. So if you like what you saw and like what you heard, be sure to like and subscribe. I enjoy making Helldivers 2 content, and if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. That's pretty much it for this video. I appreciate you all for making the time to check it out, and have a nice day.